Hi, and welcome to Joining Us, celebrating 50 years of Bands of America. My name is Chuck Henson, and for 35 of those 50 years, I was the primary public address announcer for Bands of America's series of regional and the Grand National Marching Band Championships. Now, over the course of the next 25 episodes, I'm going to do my very best to bring you the people and stories that ultimately have created the excellence that is BOA.
I just was fascinated by this man's marketing ability and the idea that he was putting together a national organization.
Well, one was having hamburgers directly across the table from Dr. Ravelli. So I'm literally watching him eat a hamburger thinking, that's William D. Ravelli having a hamburger in front of me.
Back when Marching Bands of America began in 1975, I and my high school marching band were one of the first to participate.
10 years after the experience, I'm still hearing from kids who thought that was one of the coolest things they ever got to do.
I mean, when you went joining us, those kids went nuts right then. You could have read out of a phone book from that point on. You had them.
They're just going to blow the roof off the place. Like, I get chills thinking about it.
The rifles would spin rifles, then they would catch them and they would fall on the ground at the end of the tune.
Like a death drop.
Yeah.
What's in your blood? If you cut my arm, I'll bleed Bands of America, Music for All.
What Marching Bands of America started was innovative, so new, so exciting.
50 years, a half century? Are you kidding me?
Happy 50th anniversary to Bands of America.
So get your program, find a great seat here in our virtual stadium, and get ready to learn everything you ever wanted to know about Bands of America. Joining us from Bellbrook, Ohio. Welcome back, everybody. It's time once again for another episode of Joining Us. We're almost to the end. I can't believe we have today's podcast and then next week, and that's 25 episodes. It has come and gone so very quickly. But then again, in my particular case, 35 years came and went quickly. Debbie Laferty, 40 plus years. Cam Stasa, 40 plus years. Oh, yeah. That's who our guests are today. We might as well call ourselves the Three Musketeers of Bands of America. Please join me in welcoming the Senior Director of Participant Relations, Cam Stasa, and the Executive Vice President for Marketing and Communications, Debbie Laferty. Hi, ladies.
Hello, Chuck.
Hi, Chuck.
Do you feel like you're on edge right now, that something crazy is about to happen?
Well, it could go in any number of places, but I trust you, Chuck.
Here's what I know about Cam. Of course, knowing Cam for more than half my life is that Cam right now is sweating bullets because this is completely unscripted and unprepared. And there was not a bulletin put out as to what exactly is going to happen at what time. Am I pretty far off, Cam?
I've just known you for so long and I've heard you in these podcasts, just waiting to see what direction you're going to go. Because you've got the stories and then you throw Debbie into the mix. Oh my goodness, the three of us, we've gone through a lot.
Well, let's start at the beginning then. And Cam, let me start with you. Talk to me about the beginnings of Cam Stasa. Where did you grow up? Where did you go to high school? What instrument did you play? That sort of thing.
I am a proud alum of Chesaning High School in Michigan, which back in 1976, at the very first Summer National Championship, my band director, Jim King, informed us we were going to go do this event that had never happened before. And we were going to get the charter buses to go to Whitewater. And that was just, people were trying to really understand what it was. But because it was new, there was that element of unknown. But back in those days, summer band was what everybody was doing. There was a circuit. So I truly had the privilege and honor to just simply be the right person in the right band at the time that went to that first event at Summer Nationals, which I very vividly remember.
In 1976, were you a freshman or a sophomore?
I was in my freshman year and I was a member of the color guard.
You play an instrument though, right?
I did. I was a flute player and I was not good. However, then I changed to bassoon because we needed a bassoon player in junior, senior year. And that is one thing that somebody should really not do at that stage of your high school career is change to bassoon. I tried my very, very best. And many times, God bless Mr. King, who has since passed. I know I put him through a lot because he would just stop a rehearsal and go, Cam, it's like, I know, I'm just doing the best I can.
I can just see you doing that too.
It's such a hard instrument, bassoon. I
It
mean,
was such a hard instrument.
Whoa, the embouchure alone is enough to wreck anybody's future in high school.
It was rough. It was really
Yeah.
rough, but I tried so hard and I would practice. I'd take the instrument home, and I grew up on a farm, and Dad would come in from the fields and he would go, "What is that sound?" And I said, "Dad, I'm practicing for the concert on my bassoon." And I very much remember he would say, "It sounds like one of the cows is in distress." It's like, yeah, okay.
You guys will love this. When I was a clarinet player and I was practicing in my living room. This is probably 5th or 6th grade. I mean, way back in the beginning. And my dad's sister, my Aunt Pat, was with us, and I squeaked. I was practicing and I squeaked. That was it. I was just starting. I didn't know what an embouchure was. And she laughed. And I thought she was laughing at me. And she was laughing because of the funny sound the instrument made, right? She didn't know any better. And I was mortified that she did it. But my dad was convinced that I was going to be Benny Goodman, and therefore the clarinet was what I played. Cam, was there a reason you chose the flute initially?
Well, I didn't actually choose the flute, even though back in those days, the band director came out to the house and went through instruments. For whatever reason, I really
Wait a minute. You had like an Electrolux vacuum cleaner of a band director who came to your home?
That is how they talked about instruments and choosing which one you were going to select. And for some reason, I believe probably because I had taken piano lessons for years, I wanted to do percussion. I don't know why I wanted to do percussion. I hadn't been around it, but back then it was like, oh, you will be so good on flute. And so I never had the opportunity. But then it was interesting in my 4 years of high school. Then we had some students who had moved into the school and they were percussionists. And I went, oh, she gets to be a percussionist.
Oh.
So I think in some interesting twist of fate, I was meant to go the path that I did.
Yeah.
I then became drum major by the end of my senior year. We still participated because I went back to Whitewater a second time in the summer of 79. I had already graduated, but the summer circuit was still available for us. And I was drum major at that time. We didn't make finals on that run. That was now the 4th championship of MBA. But just incredible memories. And I will forever, be grateful to Jim King that he knew this is where he wanted to take the band. And we were competitive in the summer circuit.
All right. Well, let's put a pin in that because I just realized something that I didn't know about all three of us is that we were all three drum majors.
Yes, we were.
Yes, we were.
All right, Debbie, let's head down to your part of the holler.
Yeah.
Tell us about the humble beginnings of Debbie Laferty.
I grew up in the Air Force. My dad was in the Air Force for 21 years. And so when I picked up flute, which is not what I originally wanted to play,
What did you want?
I wanted to play clarinet.
We would have welcomed you into the clarinet ranks, by the way.
I had just gotten braces, and so I couldn't play clarinet. And so they said, here, play flute. But I was living in Southern California at the time. We were on an Air Force base in Southern California that was in 4th grade. And then when my dad retired, we moved to Eastern Kentucky. And so I went to high school at Rowan County High School in Moorhead, Kentucky. Phil Shepard was my band director, incredible band director. I believe I had one of the best band directors in the country, and he certainly changed my life.
Yeah. How old were you when you guys relocated from California?
I was going into 7th grade.
Okay.
And there was a big difference between being an hour outside of LA and then moving to Eastern Kentucky. But that's where my father grew up in Eastern Kentucky. My mother grew up around the Kingsport area of Virginia.
Which is not too far from there, really.
Not too far from there. My parents met on ham radio.
Really?
Yes.
I love that.
It's just like meeting on chat, I guess, now.
For its time, sure. It was the hinge of their day.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, high school and college in Kentucky before I took a job right out of college for Bands of America.
Wow. Really? Your first gig right out of college was with MBA at the time, or was it BOA? It wasn't BOA by then. It was still MBA, right?
Well, it had just become Bands of America. So I actually had a job lined up right out of college at Kentucky Educational Television. Went to college at Moorhead, Kentucky, Moorhead State University in Moorhead, which I had a blast, really great music program. My degree was in communications, and I already had a job that I'd accepted in Lexington.
Wow.
But I had earlier that summer sent some cold resumes because I thought I'd really love to still be connected to music. That's what I had always done.
Yeah.
Sent cold resumes to some places like the Instrumentalist magazine and to McCormick's Enterprises because I knew they had a magazine called the Director Magazine, which you talked about with Larry McCormick on that episode.
That's right. Yeah. So you wanted to write basically for the director. You wanted to be in that line of work.
Right, or layout and design or just whatever might be needed. They weren't hiring at the time at McCormick's, but they were still in the same building with Bands of America. So McCormick's Enterprises was on the first floor. Bands of America was on half of the second floor. And Larry's video business after the split between McCormick's and Bands of America, and Bands of America became its own 501c3, was in the other half. So McCormick's wasn't hiring, but they walked my resume upstairs and gave it to Scott McCormick and said, we're not hiring, but do you want to look at this? And he said, as a matter of fact, I do.
And everything changed from that point forward.
And everything changed.
Literally, your life went down a path at that point that was irreversible.
And I'm still here. And Scott McCormick will say that I was his first hire.
Yeah. Wow. So Cam, what year did you graduate high school?
79.
79. And Debbie, we were both 1980, right? Or were you 79 as well?
1981.
Fun fact, Debbie and I both went to high school in Kentucky. We were both drum majors the same year, basically. And I can recall vividly being at a marching band contest, arced up with the drum majors and looking across. And there is little Debbie, who I didn't even know her name, in her ascot and satin drum major costume with the Jill boots. I think there were tassels on the Jill boots.
Probably.
And I was like, wow, she's got it going on. And then it was probably 4 years later when I met you in that ballpark. I mean, talk about serendipitous.
Yes. And I vividly remember watching Chuck conduct, being in the stands as a performer in another band, watching him conduct the Boone County High School Band, really tall, really thin.
Yeah.
And conducting the heck out of everything.
I'm not much more than that now. I was 6'2" at 135 pounds at that point. Yeah. Literally a zipper would have been thicker than I was. So Cam, what year did you join the staff then?
Well, I had the opportunity out of high school, like as Debbie's talking about Moorhead, I didn't go into a university to pursue music. I wasn't even in a college marching band. I actually started teaching guard around the country because I had been with Ken Snook, who was not my band director, but he was the band director at the time at Bridgeport High School.
And that was his gig right before Lake Park, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And his wife, Pamela Snook, they knew me because they had seen me as a drum major. And so when I was really starting my color guard instructor career, Pamela would help get me jobs to help teach kids around the country. So as that was all happening, summer camp that was up at Whitewater, that was, well in play. And the company changes from MBA into the BOA time. And I got a call to actually teach at summer camp. So I came in as a beginning flag clinician in 85. And I did that 85, 6, 7, and 8. So I was around the organization. I was judging. I did a little bit of judging starting around 86. That was back when they still had a color guard caption. And so I knew Scott, I knew Deb, I helped a little bit. I was in the press box at the Grand National Championships that were in the Pontiac Silverdome, like in 87, 88.
Yeah.
I can look at handwritten recaps here in this office and said, yep, that's my writing, because I was upstairs helping. And so then it just turned into, I finally got asked by Scott, well, hey, why don't you come in full time? So I actually started full time in like January 2 or January 3 in 1989.
1989. So we have a very similar path then, because through the Madison Scouts, we happened to be on break between tours in 1984. And Mike Turner was heading up the guard curriculum at camp. And he asked myself and Randy Black, because they were short of guard staff, if we wanted to go over and pick up some cash. I mean, that was really it, plain and simple. I'm like, yes, I'm starving. I haven't eaten in a week. Please, I would like to make some money. And that experience was just so amazing. I mean, that's when I met you both, was at that camp, right?
Yeah.
And the connection that the three of us made was just, I mean, you could just tell from the get-go that it was just going to be bonkers for as long as we were going to hang out and do that. I mean, the hijinks but also the commitment, as the organization has, the commitment to excellence, right? We all drank the Kool-Aid, and we did so pretty much at the same time. Debbie, how did you get involved in color guard? If you were a flute player and then you were a drum major, but you taught guard as well.
I did. Taught a little bit, but I wanted to continue to participate in band at Morehead State University, but didn't really want to continue flute. I actually started college as a music minor. And by the first semester, I realized it just took more commitment and time to prepare for lessons. And I was like, okay, it's time to do something different. But I wanted to continue to be in band because that was always where my community was, where my tribe was. And so I picked up flag. I had never done any color guard until started college.
And who was the instructor in college?
It was Larry Rabiot.
That's where I was going. Larry had just come out of Bridgman. He was just that amazingly showmanship-oriented drum major for the Bridgman back in their heyday, and everybody knew him.
Yes.
There were a lot of powerhouse people that went through Morehead.
Well, there were. The percussion department especially is very known for just churning out incredible musicians, but in every studio, just really fantastic. Our mutual friend, Bill Galvin, is a graduate of Morehead State University. And there are others.
Mark Whitlock.
So Mark and I was a senior when he was a freshman, and we know each other. I mean, we have that connection.
Yeah.
And he was always so sweet to me because he's so technologically inclined. So Mark Whitlock, who is a music educator or director, he's taught at many places, including Plymouth Canton, Hebron High School, Marian Catholic High School. He was the assistant there.
He got some pretty okay gigs.
he did get some okay gigs. Just such an amazing person. But he always wanted to talk to me about the brand new thing called Macintosh computers because I was already starting to do work on it. And he was fascinated, right? And so we would get together and we would talk about what we can do on Macs.
That's awesome. And Richard Miles, all the people that went through. I had the fortunate to teach the color guard at Morehead for a couple of years. When I was at school at UK, I don't even know how the connection happened. It might have been through you, for all I know.
When was that? What years?
So it was probably leading up to like 89. I graduated in 1990 from college. I took the not express bus through college, the 10-year plan, throwing drum corps in there as well. But I would have been the late back half of the 80s into 1990. But yeah, it was fun. Because at that point they were, it's college band. They were doing, a different show every week. So I would have to go down and write a new show. And it was crazy because, if someone doesn't show up and then you've got to write for them and hope that they learn their parts. And a couple of years and I was good. God, I wouldn't do that anymore. All right. So, Debbie, you get to Bands of America pretty much right out of college. So you're there. Cam, you show up a few years later. I walk in the door as a staff member, probably not till after 1990. I wasn't a staff member when I did the show at Pontiac. So it must have been after 87 when I joined the team. It changes you when you're part of an organization like, at that point, Bands of America. And there were, Cam, how many of us were there in 1990 on the staff? Do you remember?
I know when I got there in 89, there were 5 of us. It was Debbie, myself, Scott McCormick, and 2 other people. And I went, okay, let's go.
5 people. And no one would ever, there were 7. When I joined the team, there were 7 of us. It would have been me and Mike Bridges, would have been the other 2.
Huge by then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, Mike Bridges lives in the same town I live in right now.
That's so
And
remarkable.
for folks that are listening to this podcast, you've heard me mention Mike before. He's just a sweetheart of a human being and hilarious. So funny. And you guys, he is just the same as he ever was 40 years later. And his wife is gorgeous and they're living their best life and has made my move to this little town so easy because he basically walked in front of me the whole time. What you would expect out of Mike Bridges, which is honestly the Bands of America way.
Right. And Mike is fantastic. And he was part of a crew from James Madison University that came to summer campus, part of our swag team, and then came to work in the office. And one of the funniest people I know. And I wish I could remember what exactly was so funny about this moment I'm about to mention. But I know that one of the hardest times I've ever laughed in my life was on the road, stopping at a gas station to gas up our Econoline van that we traveled to shows in with Chuck and Mike.
Oh my
and I don't know
gosh.
what was so funny, but I still remember it as the hardest I've ever laughed in my life.
Well, laugh or cry. Really?
For both.
I think, isn't that where we were, guys?
Yes.
Well, and Debbie, wasn't Mike in the van when you guys were going over from Chicago to the Silver Dome and ended up falling asleep on the
Yeah.
interstate?
No.
Yes. So there were 2 years that Grand Nationals was in the Pontiac Silverdome, 87 and 1988, because there were conflicts with the Hoosier Dome.
Mhm.
And as the staff was traveling over one year, there was a blizzard, a snowstorm. And what is that goes from Chicago to, is that 90?
94.
Yeah, 94.
Yeah.
And so it was a standstill. It was night. It was snowy, and going east on 94 it was complete standstill, semis everywhere. And so everybody just was stopped in the interstate, and we turned the car off. And then we accidentally both fell asleep because we were exhausted. And we woke up in the center lane of the interstate with trucks and cars going either side of us. I was like, well, we better go now.
I love that story.
And no one's honking their horn. No one's like saying there's not a trooper around.
Not that I remember, but maybe they were, and we were just sleeping so hard that we didn't hear it. And Mike may remember that story differently, but that's exactly how I remember it.
I'll ask him. That's funny. And there wasn't ever a time, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't ever remember a time when the mighty seven of us would jump in that van on a Thursday. We would drive however long it took to get to the show. And I don't think at that point, the farthest south we went was probably Johnson City, right?
Well, we used to take in the van to Jonesboro, Arkansas, and maybe even Hattiesburg, although I think we flew into Hattiesburg.
Oh, Hattiesburg. Yeah.
Mhm.
Hattiesburg.
I think I flew into Hattiesburg. I remember that plane was one of those tiny, tiny little planes, and the doors opened up like a Lamborghini. They stopped first in some other city in Mississippi.
I think it was Tupelo.
Was it? The pilot opens the door and goes, okay, get out. If this is your... I'm like, oh my God, we're going to die. Same as the planes that went into Morgantown on Allegheny Airways.
Mm-hmm.
The wings went out of the top of the airplane as opposed to in the middle. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was like a bus with wings is what I call it. But there wasn't ever a time with our 7 people, we would drive to the site, we would unpack that trailer, tote and Moby through the mountains of West Virginia, and then do the show. We're all doing multiple tasks that are now covered by multiple people.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the show was over, Cam, we packed it back up again. Cam would cry at the end.
I was tired.
Because it was just so exhausting. It's just so exhausting. Well, and Cam, if I may say this, one of the most beautiful things about you as a human is that you wear your heart on your sleeve like that, because you know where you stand with Cam Stasa.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you do.
Thank you.
And it's never malice, or if Cam needs space, we give Cam space, because that's what needs to happen right now. But I think at that point, and Debbie, you tell me your opinion on this, but I think that's when we all went, this is bigger than all of us. When you start getting that kind of feedback from those regionals that were happening.
I remember as well, and Deb, at my first show, so it's now 1989, and we're at Morgantown, West Virginia. And, Debbie knew directors' names, and I'm saying, okay, here we go. This is my first regional as a full-time staff member. And I will never, ever forget, and I've held this with me all of these years. I saw a band director on the concourse, and I wanted to introduce myself to him and say, hey, thank you for being here. I hope the kids have a great show. And he just started gushing so much about, oh my gosh, coming to a BOA regional, this is so important. And I said, can you just take a minute? Can I dig a little bit deeper? Why? Because he said his answer was very fast. And he looked right at me and said, when I come to Bands of America, all I have to do is get to a parking lot. I know once I get to this show, I get to focus on my kids. And he said, and that doesn't happen at a lot of shows that I go to. But because of the infrastructure that was already there in all the previous years and the previous staff members that were building MBA, he said, you folks let us focus on the kids, get them ready to go, get the mindset in the right place. And they said, I love coming to a show because I feel good. We know we will be taken care of. We will be pushed through the system. I don't have to think about anything. And I've carried that with me forever.
Yeah. And that positive reinforcement it changes.
It's wonderful.
Right. When you hear that from the participants, it makes you up your game for that point for the future because you want everyone to have that experience.
And I think that is one thing that I'm so proud. We still to this day, that is something that, hey, all you need to do is hit that parking lot and our folks, our team of people helping to run the show will push you through this system. So again, don't focus on, oh, wait a minute, where's warm up? I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where I'm supposed to park the buses. I don't know where I'm supposed to unload a truck. That they can focus on getting the kids here because any band that comes to BOA, there's excitement, as there should be. We want them to come in and just show us the best band that they have. Not try to be somebody else, be the best band you are. And I really do believe, and I'm very proud of over the years, that to this day, I believe that in my full heart that still happens.
And you've taken that model and moved it to the other events as well. And what comes to my mind is the National Festival and the guides that are given to the directors who are enrolled in the National Festival so that they don't have to think about anything. The guide takes them along the process.
Correct.
Yeah, it's magic. Cam, what was your first title? Do you remember?
Oh, it was Director of Operations. So I was, oh my gosh, when I first came in, I was the person because we had a travel agent back then. So I had
Star
to
Travel.
work with the travel agent.
Was it Star or was there someone before Star?
Someone before Star, but then it became Star Travel, which for those who don't know was an arm of Star of Indiana.
Right?
Yeah.
I had to work with the judges to make their travel arrangements because we had to get the travel ticket in order to get them to fly. I was ordering the porta-johns. I was sitting with Scott McCormick regarding summer camp to lay out which clinicians were which rooms and what the sessions were going to be called. So I was very into those logistics and not as much at that time talking to the directors to get them to come to the events. I didn't start with that.
And Debbie, we were all, everything that Cam said she was doing, we were also teaching summer camp. Like we still had our jobs, but yet we also had to go teach summer camp.
Yes, that is true. There was one year, I only did that 1 year. We were short on color guarded faculty and I was a color guard instructor. So I would teach all day. And then all the other instructors would go off and do whatever they do, which I don't know what they do. And then I would drag myself into headquarters and do all the work that needed to be done. Thanks for reminding me about that, Chuck.
Well, we all paid our dues. You know, there's no suggestion.
We did.
We paid our dues. And the organization wasn't always the professional machine that you see today. It was a family business that was hey, kids, let's put on a show. And we were all just trying to find our way, but yet keeping with this commitment to excellence. Debbie, were you always doing the marketing materials? Like from day one, did they start you in the branding of Bands of America?
Yeah. So you had asked Cam about title. I came in as promotions coordinator, but my interview. So I actually came up once to Madison, Wisconsin, once to Chicago to interview with Scott McCormick. And on my second interview, an ad was due for Drum Corps World for Bands of America used to run the band contest portion of the Christmas parade. It was the McDonald's Christmas parade downtown Chicago at the time. And there was an ad due for Drum Corps World. And he said, part of your interview is I need you to make this ad. And so I did.
But you had no idea. You just took existing branding materials and created that, or?
Yes, that one was a little easier because we were using the parade branding, but the logo existed. So a gentleman named Gary Cox was an art director at McCormick's. He created the round Bands of America logo that we know. He did some other work for us also. But then when I started, I was producing the materials. In fact, maybe a year or so after I started, I used to go to Larry McCormick's home studio because he had a fancy Mac SE with 2 floppy drives in his video studio and home office. And so when it was time to produce materials or our newsletter, I would go to his home, use his Mac and PageMaker 1.2 and put those materials together. And then always did. But this ties into one thing I wanted to say just about kind of the feel of those early days. You know, the early days, and I include those where we all three worked together, felt very much like a startup, right? We were just figuring it out as we go. Mm-hmm. And Music for All has evolved into an institution. And so I've commented recently as we've gone through this fall season. We just got done with Grand Nationals last week, which went fantastic. Incredible bands. I don't think we've ever had that depth of a Grand Nationals before.
I completely agree.
Yeah. But, we have such a talented staff now of, I think, near 40. It's 39 or 40. And so the nature of the work has changed, and it's bigger than any one person, two people, one department. And so once upon a time, if anything came out of our office, anything that was written, anything that was seen, it came out of my brain and my hands because there wasn't anyone else to do it. And now we're so fortunate to have fantastic, talented colleagues who can contribute in that way. So it's really, we were at a turning point in around, the late 80s in the organization for it to become what it was going to become. And we're in another turning point right now, I 100% believe.
I mean, the people on your team, they understand the things that we had no concept of when it comes to consistency and branding and image and how to present that. What I love is that the BOA logo, the eagle, the circle eagle, and the font has not changed in 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
That consistency is part of the special sauce.
Mm-hmm. There's no need to change that.
Yeah.
People have a love for Bands of America, and people have a love for that brand and that logo. And, I say to others sometimes to look at the Bands of America logo, especially in the Music for All logo, feels like looking in a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so familiar, and it's so much a part, I think, of all of us that have lived with and contributed and are passionate about it. It's special to us. And someday that day may come where it's time to change, but just ask Coca-Cola how well that can go when you try to change your logo.
Cam, when it comes to your role as Director of Participant Relations, what does that mean?
Once my title changed into Participant Relations, I had the opportunity, and it was given to me by Scott McCormick, as we hit the era of the 90s, like we could feel there was a growth that was happening. And granted, there were great things that happened in the 70s and the 80s in the NBA days, but Scott's vision in the 90s, just he knew where he wanted to take us. And we knew as we were starting new ventures that we needed to have the band director. And I knew that when I first got there to the company itself, I had moved from Michigan. I had never done anything like that. And I kept thinking, oh my gosh, if I don't produce, I'm going to be fired. I will need to go back home to Michigan and say, I didn't do this. And even in that first summer in 1989, that was the last Summer Nationals championship, which I had worked on so hard and so hard. And I kept reaching out to directors saying, oh my gosh, please come and be in the band contest, which is what I had grown up with from 76 onward. And band directors kept telling me in that summer, we're really not doing the summer circuit anymore. And I thought, Scott's going to literally fire me. I can't get bands. And we ended up with 5 bands in that show. And I begged them, please stay in the show. And we had the show. We knew it was at its end, but there were 5 bands. But then I could turn around to Scott and say, but look how many I have for the fall. Because we had the fall season coming at us. Look how many I have here. Look how many I have here. It's okay, I'm talking to the directors. And because I had been a guard instructor for years and had worked my way around the country, I felt like I really had gotten an education in dealing with band directors to communicate with them and having taught at the summer camp. So I knew just enough that I felt confident that I could say things from my personal background to get directors to consider coming to our Bands of America events. So whether that was summer camp or coming to a regional, coming to Grand Nationals, it was talking to a director to say, if you haven't tried us, you yet don't know if you like us or don't. And granted, over time, once we had about mid-90s, there were folks who would say, oh, well, I'm not a BOA band. It's well, hold on. If you come to a BOA event, you are a BOA band. Because folks would say, well, but I'm not back in the day, I'm not a Westfield. I'm not a Spring. I'm not a Centerville. It's like, well, good, because I already have those. I want you to be you.
Yeah.
Come to our event and be the best you. So I developed this rapport with the directors, which even going back to Debbie, I remember sitting in the office in 1989 at some of the first staff meetings, 5 of us around a table, and a band program would come up and Debbie would whip out a band director's name. Well, that's so-and-so and this is that. And I went, oh, I'm in awe of Debbie. She just knows band director names and which programs they came from, what show they're going to, when they won. And I went, oh my gosh, how does she do that? And now, yes, there is a joke. Many people will bring me out like for party games during Grand Nationals or at Midwest Clinic, because they'll say, Cam, who was the band director at blah, blah, blah school? It's like, oh yeah, but somehow I picked that up through osmosis over those years. But those directors I knew early on is, yes, I didn't want to get fired, but if bands didn't come to our shows or if directors didn't send kids to camp, I needed to convince them, come, give us a try. Just come, give us a try. I know when you see the visual experience, when you come to camp, when you come to a BOA event, I know you're going to see the magic that we do create. And that was always the joy.
All right, let's take a moment for a quick break because I want to listen to some of your stories. Now, remember, if you've got a special Music for All or Bands of America memory or story, you can record it and be a part of this very 50th anniversary podcast. Just visit musicforall.org/podcast to contribute your story.
Hi, I'm Anita Glaze, and I am working as part of the participant relations team here at Music for All. I've been in this position for about a year and absolutely love it. I'm a former band mom with 3 boys who marched all the way through high school and 2 are marching in college. 2 of those kids are also music majors, and I married a band director. So it made sense for me to join the team here at Music for All, an organization that absolutely changed the lives of my 3 kids and our entire family. And what a privilege it is to be here and to be part of the 50th anniversary. It's a pleasure to come to work every single day, and I look forward to our future and how we can grow and just reach more and more students.
Hi, Mark Martin from St. Louis, Missouri. I have been a huge fan of BOA from the early days. I was actually in Whitewater when Silver Webster won way back in. Yeah. I believe it was 1979. And I am a huge fan of Chuck Henson. Actually, Chuck and I marched together in the Madison Scouts. So I've always been just a person that followed BOA from the early days and shared stories with Chuck back and forth about different groups along the way. In 2010, I started going to BOA Grand Championships in Indianapolis, and I let Chuck know that each time I was there, and we would text each other back and forth about who was good, who thought we were going to be in finals, and compared our list. And it's always been fun. I was one of those people that made sure that for semifinals that I got up early that morning and got to the stadium to watch the first band because I thought it was important for those smaller bands to have a person in the audience in the early morning hours. So fast forward 2013, Chuck invited me to come up to the booth and watch semifinals with him. And I was just so elated and so excited. And so most of you don't know me, but I'm a really joyful, cheerful, happy person. I also I have a laugh that's sort of contagious. And Chuck knew this. So one of my favorite shows Chuck talked about was William Mason. And that year, that show was Till Death Do Us Part. Now, I hadn't seen it in person, but I had heard a lot about it, and I was so excited to see it. And so I'm up in the booth. They come out, and those who don't know, it's pretty much about a jilted bride, and it had these blow-up dolls of being in tuxedos and this and everything, and it's a great show, and it's just hilarious. And I just thought it was very innovative. And in the middle of the show, the brides get jilted, and they start beating these blow-up dolls on the field. I am rolling, laughing, I'm crying. Chuck starts laughing, and we're both leaning over in the booth, and the next thing I know, we've got everyone up there in the booth with Chuck, all the cameramen and everything. We're all in there Diane Laferty and me looking at the show, I will forever remember that moment that, I pretty much messed up the whole booth at BOA semifinal. So that's my great BOA story from the last 50 years. And I was very excited. I got to share it with one of my very, very dear friends.
Hi, this is Mark Whitlock again. Yes, another story. I am grateful that through my career of being connected with Bands of America, that later on, I want to say 2008 maybe, I was given the opportunity to judge regionals for Bands of America through Gary Markham, who asked if I would be interested, and we had a conversation, and I've been judging on and off ever since. And I am very grateful to Gary and Bands of America for giving me the opportunity to learn so much more about my craft being on the other side, being an evaluator. It just teaches you a lot. It really opens doors sometimes that you don't think of when you're the band director. And I really appreciate Gary and BOA for giving me the opportunity. Thanks to Richard Salcedo, Nola Jones, and John Phillips as well.
Now, let's rejoin our conversation. Do you guys remember the call lists we used to do? I mean, they would literally divide up every band in the country.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you were responsible for making so many calls a day to introduce yourself, to make sure that folks knew about the programs and that there was a new regional in their backyard.
Right.
Cam, do you feel, and I know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask the question anyway, you felt personally responsible for the number of bands that were in each event, didn't you?
All the time. All the time.
Yeah.
And it took a while, much later in the career, to not feel the loan burden, because I know it wasn't a loan burden.
Of course not.
But because that was just such a pivotal time in the 90s that when we didn't hit a benchmark, and granted, Debbie's, doing the marketing, and I'm trying to chat with the folks and say, did you see did the newsletter just arrive at your school? And look, there's an application inside there. Or I'd go to conferences, state music conferences, and again, encourage folks to just give us a try. That it really was just a matter of saying, what is happening at your school? And, we have this experience close to you. Just come give us a try. And for some folks, legitimately, they tried us and went, that's not really for me. And those are then words I keep all these years later, that director, you're the only one who knows your community and your kids, your parent group, your administration. If we're not the right place to come to, that's okay. But I want you to try it before you start saying, oh, this is not the right place for me. You need to try it. And I know over time, there were a number of directors who said, Cam, why didn't you get me to come and do this BOA show years ago? I was like, how many times when I talking to you to say you need to come? Because once they dip their toe in, 9.9 times out of 10, folks will go, oh my God, that was really cool. And you treated our kids like they were rock stars. And they said, and we were not that good. And it's like, hold on.
But everybody gets better. All ships rise when the tide comes in.
Everybody, like every band will come, and we celebrate all bands.
Yeah.
And that is the joy.
It's funny. I had a moment very similar to the one you described on the concourse with the director with Kyle Harrop when he was at Carroll High School.
Sure.
Through the course of working with you, when there were just 7 to 8 of us, you see these names on applications and you're filling out, and you're doing forms and you're making the calls. And he called the office one day and was like, you don't know who I am? I go, of course I know who you are, Kyle Harrop. You're at Carroll High School. And I think our friendship started right then and there. Cam, you are the absolute best at what you do. Every person we've talked to, your name has certainly come up every time in every podcast. You are a rock inside Bands of America, and you're a rock star inside Bands of America because of the white glove treatment you give to your band directors. I mean, it's no one does what you do. No one could even attempt to do what you do.
That is very kind of you, and it's very humbling. And to me, this was always just an honor, because we've all talked about it at our shows over all of the years. Directors have choices of where they go. And if a director chose to come to our event, and whether you spent X amount of money or now all these years later, like moving buses is not an easy thing to do, especially post-pandemic. So as even now my team within my Department of Participant Relations, we're trying to listen to directors. What is the stumbling block? How can we help you? We want to get you with us. And hey, it might not work for this year, but you know what? I've got next year. Or if marching band is not the thing that really works for you, hey, I've got a summer camp that I can talk about individual students.
Yep.
I have an honor band of America. I've got a jazz band of America. And now Tournament of Roses is an individual experience that one way or another, if a band director feels, oh, I don't have a place within you, it's like, no, we have many other things to talk about and ways you can get involved.
You're like the waiter at the best steakhouse in town. You got the menu completely memorized. You know exactly how it's cooked and how it's served up. Debbie, with the marketing department, how important was our involvement in IFEA to what you were trying to build? Because that was always a marquee, like you would win all these awards for marketing with the program books and the newsletters and things like that. And I think from inside marketing circles, that helped to put Bands of America on the map.
Yeah, so Eric Martin, our CEO for years, was very involved in IFEA, which is the International Festival and Events Association, and encouraged or insisted that we start submitting some of our materials. They have an awards program that recognizes outstanding work in areas of marketing and promotion and materials, print materials, video, different multimedia, now websites, after that became a thing. And he encouraged us to participate. And we did. We were recognized. I remember the first recognition we got from IFEA. He had been to their international conference and then came directly to our, at the time, Atlanta Super Regional, carting a stack of plaques in his arms and was just very proud. And what was fun about that is that we were being adjudicated for those awards alongside the big guys. So the Kentucky Derby Festival, the Tournament of Roses,
Sundance Film Festival, things along those lines.
Yes,
Right?
exactly. So it really elevated what we were doing. It provided a kind of, not validation, but we see you.
Yeah.
And when you're winning awards alongside or first place in a category where Kentucky Derby Festival, for instance, getting second place, or, it really says, because you're in this closed kind of circuit of an activity, it just reminds you that, oh, you actually may be doing good work. And so it kind of propels you to continue on the path you're on.
I would say the you are doing work is you. I'm going to point the finger right at you because you are what people see at Bands of America. Everything that's ever been created, every program book cover, the layout of the program, back when we used to do hard tickets, ticket design, all of that stuff all came from your desk. And so while there were some team sort of things in that, really the truth of the matter is, much like I said to Cam, you are the best at what you do. And you've got a track record of 40 plus years of showing it. And I think that if folks recognized that now Music for All, you've mentioned it earlier, now it's much bigger. It's an institution rather than just a mom and pop startup. And a lot of those things are taken for granted, but that's still an everyday task to keep the brand on track, to keep it on target, to keep it growing, to keep it fresh. And that's what you do every single day. And bravo. I mean, you're amazing at it. And I bow to your greatness.
Well, thank you, Chuck. Thank you. That means a lot to me. And I have two things I want to say about that. First, we have an incredible team, both on our full-time staff and with outside contractors. And so I can take credit up to a point and then credit where credit's due. So much of what everybody sees now is from our incredible team.
Yeah.
And I am providing support and helping provide a guiding light, I hope. But, the things that people see today and in recent years, they are the result of an incredible team of staff in not just the marketing communications department, but across all departments. And then our outside contractors, designers, web designers, folks who work with us that keep us looking good. And I wanted to say, you mentioned branding. I've been thinking a lot about this. And, branding ultimately is how people feel about you.
Right.
And all of the stuff is what they see, but it's that feeling that people have. It's how they think of you. It is how they feel when they read your words and their conversations with you and see your posts on social media and pick up a program book or something tangible. And I think that is where we've become more sophisticated.
Yeah.
You mentioned that, Chuck, right? We were flying by the seat of our pants for so many years, but now we have grown to the point where we can be very intentional about who we are and how we want people to feel, because how we want people to feel is spectacular when they participate in our events.
We said that at the 50th anniversary of the official party. You know, it's how you make people feel is what they'll always remember.
That's right.
James said to me that night that Music for All is by far now the nation's largest arts advocacy organization in the country. And to think of those humble beginnings of 7 of us toting Moby to Morgantown, West Virginia, I mean, it's got to make you both feel incredible that you've been there the whole time. Cam, how does news like that resonate within you?
When I had an opportunity here over the weekend at Nationals to actually sign a message in the book for Larry McCormick, I really, and I've said this to him before back at the 40th anniversary, that the vision that he and Joy McCormick had and the people, Nick Valenciano and Gary Beckner and Mike Davis and all those folks at the beginning, really, I'm sure were also flying by the seat of their pants, but they knew they wanted to do this. And here we are now, 50 years later, that there have been many folks who have worked inside that office and moved that ball down the field.
Yeah.
And then I feel I was just incredibly like fate, timing, what have you, that I got in to teach at the summer camp, which I mean, just Whitewater. When I hear Whitewater, I get giddy, because Whitewater to me is what we had when I went there in 76 as a young high school student. And then to have the opportunity and the privilege for Scott to hire and say, hey, here we go in the 90s. And that seemed like the 90s was just this incredible expansion of here's the things that we can do. And I very much started to realize, okay, there's something really big that is happening here now. This still to this day is an honor to be able to talk to directors. I was never a band director. That was never my intent. And clearly I should not have been one. However, I think music educators, and now whether you're choir or your orchestra or band, you have had for years, in my eyes, the best job on the planet. You are creating this emotional experience for your students. But I also know every single one of the skills that you are giving those kids as well. And I know we've talked over the years about all the special accolades that come here, by being a student in music, and your ACT score is going to be great and your SAT. I have felt forever you are making great humans.
Yeah.
You have taught them to work together. In competition, my eyes, because I had some great people who helped me along the way, competition was not bad. Children are going to compete for the rest of their life to get a job, to get that house. Competition will always be there. But to teach young people, and for a director, again, choir, orchestra, band, to have that joy. And again, they are teenagers. So let's say sometimes it's not quite joyful, but even when we have the opportunity to see our students at the show, they put the uniform on and they are just, my gosh, what they're being asked to do is incredible. And then I see them be kids outside in a hallway or in a parking lot. And it just makes me hopeful, and has for many, many years, for the future. This organization creates this aura in this space for young people and the directors who bring their kids to realize, yes, it's the championship, but it's much more than that. And that is still, to me, is an honor to be part of, to create that magic.
But Cam, have you allowed yourself this space to really let that sink in about your role in the last 50 years? I mean, yes, we're talking about the organization, all the higher things that it does, but you personally have crafted what is today basically a template for anyone who wants to succeed in this business.
Oh, Chuck. I don't think about myself often from that role. I love it. Give me an opportunity to talk to a director in what they're doing in their school. I find great joy in that because it's fun. And I honestly will say the 50 years having marched at the first event, and granted, the organization was created in 1975, but I will tell you next June 12th in 2026, which is the date of the finals at Whitewater that happened in 1976.
Wow.
I'm going to have my own party.
Okay, keep talking. I'm getting goosebumps.
It has been part of my life, and I respect the people who were here before me, and I am honored, and it just gives me great joy to see what I have been able to accomplish over time.
There you go.
To be able to work with Debbie. Oh my gosh, she took me under her wing back when I first got into the office, and I said, I don't really know what I'm doing. And to collaborate with you, with her. I mean, the stories, the people that have been in the office that have helped us create these things, it makes me happy. It is in there. Most of the time, though, I know I actually do. I deflect back to the participants that are with us because that is what gives me great joy. It gives me joy.
Always on message, Cam. Always on message. Debbie, let me ask you the same question because obviously, look, we all know how old we are. 50 years, if you subtract 50 from our ages, there isn't much left. We've been at this a very long time. And how do you feel about what the organization has done for you personally and then your mark on what it's become today?
Well, I'd like to say something else first.
Okay.
We were talking about Music for All as an advocacy and education organization. And the merger of Bands of America and Music for All Foundation in 2006, I think really laid the groundwork for that to become the case. And now there's so much outreach for educators and work that we're doing to advocate for music education. If I go back to the question about myself, when I started working at Bands of America, I wasn't thinking that far ahead.
Of course not. None of us were.
Yeah.
No.
None of us were.
And then 50 years ticked by.
But the organization grows and changes every era, every 8 to 10 years. And so it's like work. I never felt a desire or need to do something else because I started by doing something I loved, which was being involved in music and band, and then never had the opportunity to feel bored or tired of it or like I wanted to do something different because then it was new and different. We launched the National Concert Band Festival and entered that era and now have programming for orchestras and entered that era. And as we grow and do more, we have more impact on more people. And so it just becomes that much more satisfying. And I am always happier in the background and doing what it takes behind the scenes. Yeah. And so I just think of it in terms of what the organization has been able to accomplish in that time. And I feel like a steward and protector for the organization and just helping us continue to do what we do.
Very well put. Obviously, we were all part of the move from Chicago to Indianapolis, which was so crazy. But Cam, there's a photograph of you that's in the Indy Star related to that move, isn't there?
Yes, there is.
Can you talk about that? I know you said you'd never get a subscription if they ran it. And so
the move to Indianapolis, when that was first presented to us, it was very mind-boggling for me from the perspective of, I had moved from Michigan to go to Chicago. Chicago had been my home there. We had been, building the organization. And when they start talking about, yes, we're going to move to Indianapolis, it took me a bit personally to wrap my head around it. But it was also from the perspective of there's never a good time to move, not with this organization. So when folks think, oh, you guys must have the week off now that Nationals is done, it's like, no, because we're already knee deep into our concert festival that is going to be here in spring. We're going to Tournament of Roses with our honor band in 5 or 6 weeks. It's like, no, we basically just had a full night of sleep and now we just keep going. So there was never a good time to move. And once it was decided this is when it was going to happen, I know from my perspective, I was doing state conventions at that time of year. So I didn't have time to be part of the official move. And what they told me was pack up your office, pack up the things around the office so that everything can get on the moving truck. Then I went to a conference. I actually think I went to Florida Music Educators. And when I came back, instead of going to Chicago, I went to Indy. So I was not here to have walked into the office here in Union Station. And it was, everything is everywhere. This was also a bigger office. Even in my short time in Chicago, we kept moving to different offices because we needed more space. So this was now much more space. And as we got settled in, the National Concert Band Festival was coming a couple months later. It's still state convention season. So it was just a very interesting move. But as we made the move into Indy, what I know I encountered was in Chicago, we were a very small fish in a really big pond. What I was not ready for was coming here into Indianapolis. Every time I turned around, whether I was wearing a coat that had a logo, my backpack that had a logo, I was in the wildest of places. And somebody said, "Oh, Bands of America." It's like, wait, hold on. What's happening? And it really was freaking me out to begin with. I remember looking at Scott McCormick and said, "You owe me a full set of clothes because everything I have is branded and everybody knows the brand." So I had it at a doctor's office. I had it on an airplane. Every time I turned around, somebody had a connection to band. However, once I got out of my head on all of that, I will forever say, I thought our move to Indianapolis was one of the most incredible things that needed to be done. By doing the move to Indianapolis and the city who helped move us here, the mayor, this was a big deal, but we knew we were making a commitment to the city of Indianapolis. We had already been producing many, many events, and we had been all over the country, and we're very well established. But to be able to look at the Indianapolis public schools and the commitment we made to them at the time, we started doing many more outreach and opportunities for folks that were not just glitz and glamour of grand nationals. That's when it felt to me like we had really gone from a small organization that was starting to grow up. That to me is when it felt like, okay, now we are established. Yes, we're doing the marching band championships. Yes, we're doing the summer camp. Yes, we're doing the national festival. But now we could be all into the educational component, which we needed to be doing at that many years in existence as an organization.
And Cam, I think what you've described is we were part of the community. We were part of the education community and the arts community, which in the Chicagoland area, there's just no opportunity for that. It's just too big. And Chuck, you said we were all part of the move. Because I never made the move and never lived in Indianapolis because the organization moved to Indianapolis in 2003, relocated, and I started working full-time remote in 2001. So I was a very early adopter of remote work. I've been doing it now for 24 years, but my husband took a job at University of New Mexico in Albuquerque, and I went to our bosses at the time and said, I have a choice. Either it's time to say goodbye or we can try to let me work remotely. And our associate executive director, Eric Martin, I remember he said to me at the time, this will never work. You will be irrelevant. And within 6 months. And so I was ready to fight for my job. And we revisited in 6 months. And he said, it's working out great. Let's keep doing it. And now we have, I think, 5 full-time remote employees, which is wonderful. It wouldn't work for every position. There just has to be a critical mass of people in Indianapolis, and especially depending on what job it is. But for those that it can work, it gives us the opportunity to retain or to hire really talented people, even if their life situation means that they can't make a move.
I would like to share a couple little fun things about both of you with everyone. And Debbie, since we're talking, I want to start with you and me and Grand Nationals and clearing people out of my booth. So nothing makes me happier than the years that I was able to be the public address announcer for Bands of America. But when you do it for long enough, I used to say there were kids in the band when I started who have kids in the band, but now it's grandkids in the band. And people love to come visit. They love to come visit and say hi. And when they do, I'm not focused on the show. And we've all said, all three of us have said, the most important thing are the participants. And for me, that's the moment when they take the field. That's that send off that we give them when we do the joining us. We started, how many years ago was this, Deb? It's been over a decade.
Well over. Yeah.
If the booth got a little too crowded, I could get on the radio or send a message to Debbie, who, by the way, sits the press box at Lucas Oil Stadium. The PA booth is up at the roof at the 0 yard line. And if you're a band person, it's side 2, 0 yard line up in the corner. It's really up there. And Debbie sits in the booth. She kind of holes away at a little booth about 2 down from there.
Yep.
So I know exactly where she is. And she's close enough that if I can radio and say, I could really use some orange juice. Like that's our code, orange juice. Debbie will, within a minute, come down. She'll have a notebook in her hand. She'll go, everybody, I need to speak to Chuck about something. If you could. And everybody clears out. I'm like,
Chuck, would you like some orange juice? Everybody out. I need you to leave. I got to talk to Chuck.
I love you so much for that. It has saved the show so many times when frustration was getting high. Or Debbie, think of all the tension that's been in that booth, like at finals, especially the beginning of finals when we were still unsure how to back time the beginning of finals.
Yes. And of course, you owed me some minutes one year when we weren't in agreement of when we needed to start. And that still takes place. It was James Stevens and Dan Potter and myself up in the press box this past weekend, back timing so we would know when to start the welcome announcement. But I also must say, Chuck, that some of my favorite moments have been being next to you, like for prelims awards and the moments that no one else will get to see because it's usually just you and me.
Yeah. Debbie's double checking everything to make sure that we say the right thing.
That's right. And then Chuck announcing something during awards and then going off mic and his commentary, which is always good natured and, about how great the bands are, but just spot on and so amusing. So I always felt like that 30 minutes was my favorite 30 minutes of the year.
The other is at Midwest Clinic.
I know what you're going to say.
I'll say it every time.
I'll say it every time.
We'd set up this booth at Midwest Clinic, and it's a marketing booth, right? So folks come by and you do a lot of glad handing and shaking hands, introducing yourself, handing out applications, talking about programs. But in the back, we would have this big old rental screen, and we'd run videotapes of the previous year's Grand Nationals. And it was Westfield, right?
Yes, it was Westfield.
Yeah. The year that Westfield won Grand Nationals, they had these amazing flags. I mean, just these beautiful, huge flags. Almost looked like a Santa Clara type flag.
I think they were pink and gold, weren't they?
Oh, just gorgeous. And Debbie would, that part of the show, I mean, you see those 12 bands 35 times over the course of, like they're just always running. Every time it would come on, those flags would make their debut and Debbie would go, I love those flags. I'll say it every time. And so that became a thing. I'll say it every time became a thing. And still to this day, Debbie and I will say, I'll say it every time to each other and know exactly what we're talking about.
And what that means is also, I love you, Chuck. I'll say it every time.
I'll say it every time. Miss Stasa, does neatness count?
Oh, I know where you're going with that one. Of course it is.
Back in the days of when we would do packets, and I don't know if do you guys still do packets for directors and mail them out and stuff like that? Or is that it's all electronic now?
No.
Digital.
Yes, it's digital.
So back in the day when there were photocopies of everything, front and back, and they had to be in a certain order and they were stapled, and the staple had to be in the top left corner and it had to be parallel to the bridge of the paper, and then it had to be folded in this perfect way, and it goes in the envelope, and the writing had to be, and the label had to. Cam Stasa, just the police of neatness. Why? Because it matters. Right, Cam?
I had heard, and at that time, like we were always hearing Dr. Tim speak at, one conference or another. And he had years ago just put that little nugget in my head that while we were in a room doing, a couple hundred packets, and putting a label on, that the last thing you would want to have is that be your packet that you received in the mail and the label is askew. Because then it looked like, well, wait a minute. We know that we had just labeled a couple hundred packets. So it's only one that got messed up. But the person who gets that one was, no, like that can't be.
It's how you make them feel.
This is important. And funny, I know that I've had some other folks of recent, okay, Vicky Senar, I'm talking about you.
Love me some Vicky Senar.
You had remembered that I had made the statement that those were just the things that I knew, again, for every band director that was coming to our events, every director who was sending children to camp, that was a commitment. And to me, it's like, okay, they've now put our faith in us. I know what we're going to deliver, but I want now you have bought in. I'm going to make sure every step possible is going to be at that high level. And that now continues. As Debbie has said, she's got her department that has developed. And I've got a department that we have talked about these things within participant relations, that no matter what and who, and yes, the years change. I've gone through a lot of band directors who have come and gone, but the program still stays with us.
Yeah.
And so when I've got a program that I know has been here for years, or if it's a brand new one, they still get that same treatment because that is just how we do things here at Music for All in Bands of America. It doesn't matter.
Cam, I got to tell you, still to this day, the phrase neatness counts comes out of my mouth more than I would like to share.
Thank you. That makes me feel good. Thank you.
That, and tell us a little bit about your t-shirt collection.
Oh, what's so funny? Actually, in the last 2 days, I pulled out an older sweatshirt for the last 2 days. And I've had young staff saying, wait a minute, where did that shirt come from? Because of course I have my vintage shirts from back in the day.
Cam has every t-shirt and sweatshirt that has ever been put out for Bands of America. Are they all hanging? Are they folded? The neatness counts goes into that too, I'm sure.
Folded, neatness counts. But Debbie created these were Debbie designs.
That's right.
And they were just great. So I know the younger staff in the office go, where did that come from? We did just notice that the sweatshirt that I brought out yesterday, which, okay, clearly nobody has seen here in a while, everybody in the office commented, oh my gosh, that's great. And I looked down at the little, because it had a little line underneath. And it was from Vision Graphics, who was doing our stuff at the time.
That's right.
And it said 1991. And then, yes, one of my colleagues in the education department said, oh, that's the year I was born. I went, great.
Fired. You are so
Thank
fired.
you. Fired. Out of here.
So, and that's just fun because I'm hoping in my time that our younger staff, they don't need to memorize the past, but I do want them to know how we got here. This is how we treat the band directors, the orchestra directors, the folks coming in for festival. This is how we take care of those people. And without them, we could have shut our doors years ago.
And would have.
Absolutely. And that's a critical component that we've needed the entire bell curve all of these years to participate. If we only had bands who are on the upper echelon of competition, like there's so much more than that. And we loved the finals that we had the other night, but watching, oh my gosh, the band that came from Alaska and just the reception to those students.
And it was their first competition ever.
It was incredible. We have a first-time Class A champion who has not won before. We have a first-time 2A champion. And seeing the emotion on those directors that they didn't quite know what to do. And I live for that stuff because they did their job to the best that they had been taught and practiced. And they came and showed it on our incredible stage. And we got to shine our national spotlight on them. That's when it gets fun.
And for those folks that are listening to this podcast when it comes out in December, I hope you understand that the reason that Bands of America and Music for All is the Class A organization that it is today is because of these two ladies. Honestly, I mean, you've heard them talk about it all throughout the last hour, and it's true. There would not be a Bands of America or Music for All without Cam Stasa and Debbie Laferty. So, ladies, is there anything that I haven't asked you about that you want to make certain that we talk about today?
I would like to say Chuck Henson.
Well, there, you said it. Good, Debbie. That's awesome.
There.
Yeah.
Okay, bye. Yeah, Chuck, you are a Bands of America and Music for All treasure, and so deeply a part of this organization in so many ways, but also what so many kids then and adults now think of when they think about their experience. So just thank you. I cherish your friendship and all the times we spent together. And I love listening to your interviews in this series. I think it's really created an important body of work about Music for All and Bands of America in these past 50 years.
You know, James told me that several of the Larry episode and a couple others he's made required listening for his team. It's like, if you're going to know what you're working with, this is it. You need to know this. And given the opportunity, I, of course, jumped at it because why wouldn't I? There's no way I would say no to something like that. Cam, did we miss anything that you want to make sure we talk about? Me, maybe? I'm really not that conceited, I promise everybody.
Enough about you. What do you think about me?
That's why it's funny.
Oh, wait, I said that wrong. It's a Bette Midler quote. Enough about me. What do you think about me?
I remember every time I go to Johnson City, I remember you and Carmichael that you left upstairs. Was that his name?
Oh my gosh, the Shriner. I'm looking right at him. Harold C. Carmack.
Oh, Carmack. There you go.
I'm looking right at him. I still have him.
Chuck, there's just times over the history that Toledo, Ohio, when it was a hot mic and you didn't know it.
When Debbie and I nearly got fired that day.
It's just the joy in putting together what we do. This has just been an incredible existence. And again, an honor, as I told Larry McCormick and as I tell to Scott, this entity is part of so many people. And to have known that I had my hand in it, it's very overpowering at times. And now to have hit that 50-year timeline, and now I look ahead and look at the younger staff in our office to say, okay, you are going to carry this forward as we go to the 55, as we go to year 60, as we go to 65, 70, 75, and this will be moved forward. And now with our new president and CEO, Dr. James Weaver, there is a new energy. Once again, as Deb said, these eras have each had their own element to it. And I will say this has been an incredible 50 so far. I can't wait to see where this organization is going to go from here.
Yeah, I'm reminded of the photo of all of us, of the staff at the time at the first National Concert Band Festival at Pixtager. And we were children, just children standing on that stage.
Yeah.
And now to watch all these events grow, you know, the people we are today, I think I can speak for all three of us, the people we are today is a direct result of our involvement in music and music education.
100%.
Absolutely.
And the family that we've created is like no other. And that's what it is. You know, I consider you both family. So
same.
Debbie Laferty, Cam Stasa, thank you for being a part of this today. I'm so proud to know you both and to see the good work that you're both doing. And let's just keep it moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck.
Thank you, Chuck.
Hey, thanks for listening to the Joining Us podcast. We are celebrating 50 years of Music for All and Bands of America. Do you have your own story or memory to share? Well, I want to hear it. You can record your own story by visiting musicforall.org/podcasts. We may just include your voice in a future episode. Hey, thanks to Yamaha, our national presenting sponsor. And don't forget to make sure you're subscribed to the Music for All Podcast Network, wherever you get your podcasts. I want to thank Ben and Laura from the team at Music for All for making this happen and lining up all of our guests. And of course, the way it sounds, that's the magic of our executive producer, Patrick Keller. I'm Chuck Henson. Thanks for being here. We'll see you next week on Joining Us. Joining us from Avon, Indiana,